Good evening, everyone. This is John Scarborough. I wanted to make a little video today. I wanted to touch on a little bit of a question that I've had. I've had a few people ask me, do I use fly spray for my cows? Do I spray them with fly spray to help with the flies and to ease some of the pressure that the flies have? So I wanted to go ahead and answer that question today. And I think the simple answer to that question would be yes and no. And I think if you'll wait and give me just a little bit to explain, then I can give you a much better answer, I think. And essentially, like, if you look at this cow, it's not bad. I don't know if you can see in this lighting how it is. It's kind of hard to tell in the lighting. It's actually getting a little bit dark, but that cow wasn't too bad. Now this one's a little bit on the worse side, but it's not terrible. It's definitely worse than what I would like to see. Like this one right here, this is much worse than what I would like to see. I don't think that you are picking that up real well. You'll just have to take my word for it. But anyway, so when we first got cows, and of course these are black cows, so they sweat a little bit more down south here, and I think that sweating actually causes some of the problems too. But anyway, so when we first got these, we had to spray them more, and there's different reasons why, and we'll go into that as we go. And part of that is grazing practices. You know, as we've gotten better and progressively moved farther in our regenerative practices and tried to get better and better, we actually, the fly production has dropped a lot. The amount of flies that we've seen on our cows has actually dropped a pretty good bit. And that's just simply due to moving more often. The more you move your cows, the less you'll see flies anyway. And that's no matter what type of cows you have. Our goal is to get to something like a South Pole breed, a mostly South Pole. That's what our goal is. We hope to move towards that. And I'll talk into that a little bit more on other videos. But the good thing about the South Pole is they have a very slick hide. And so they just don't seem to attract the flies, or the flies are not as happy on their backs. I'm not quite as sure exactly what it is, you know. So there's several things you can do naturally to help reduce the flies. And that's something that we're progressively moving towards with bird houses and things like that. But on occasion, we do spray our cows for flies. Now I would say that we're down to maybe about once a year at best. It might even be, it's probably at this point, it's probably less than once a year. And so I'll give you some scenarios as to why we spray our cows. And so one is that the flies just look so bad. Okay, I'll say this first. Typically, I do not spray the whole herd. I selectively spray. Now, most people would say, oh, well, if you selectively spray, then all of those flies that come off of that one will go and attack another. I've actually experimented with that, and I have not seen that to be the case. Now, maybe if all of your cows were so badly attacked by these flies, that may be the case. But personally, I just haven't seen that to be the case. So personally, I'll actually selectively spray the ones that are really, really bad. And I don't fully understand why some of them just naturally seem to attract more flies, okay? And I think in the future, if I got to where I had a better and better herd, I would even start to call for cows that had more flies. Now, I'm not at that stage yet, because you have to kind of you have to start out calling for stuff that's, you know, really bad, obviously bad, and then as your herd gets better, you call better. You know, your calls, the things that you actually cut out of your herd, are actually start to become better and better cows, okay? But that's a story for a different day as well, okay? So I would actually spray the ones that were really bad, so that would be one reason why I would spray my cows, would be if they just looked like they were miserable, just absolutely miserable, they were covered up in flies, you know, because even though we want to be regenerative and we want to move towards a better system and a better, you know, we want to move towards as good possible practices as we can. We can't just expect the cow to suffer and, you know, and just fall completely downhill. So we try to do things to aid what we, aid the cow in it as best we can as we move forward, okay? But there is another reason I'll actually spray. I'll spray on occasion, and that's if I get my whole herd together and move them from one farm to another, okay? And I find that by doing that, the fly population actually drops dramatically across the board. And the reason is because you're not just moving them from pasture to pasture, because every time you move them from one pasture to the next, especially if you move fast enough, you decrease the amount of flies overall, okay? And so that's huge in itself. But when you go a couple miles down the road and you move from one farm to another, and this other farm hasn't had any poop on it, there's no poop anywhere close to it, okay? There's a farm that I can go to. It's a smaller place. I actually just made some videos where I had gone out there. That farm is far enough away, and it has no other cattle grazing around it. All the other places around it are either houses or they're hay pastures. So there's no cattle flies anywhere near there. So anytime I go to that place, which is not real often because I have to load up the entire herd to do it, but anytime I do that, I will go ahead and spray my cows. Now in the wintertime, I don't have to. They just don't have that problem. This is only if I do it during the hot summer when the flies are bad. So I will spray them, the entire herd, as I get them on the trailer, and go ahead and spray them and then move them to that next pasture. By doing that, I completely wipe out the entire generation of flies. Then they get over there, all the manure pats that they lay on the ground, they have there's no new larvae laying inside of the manure pats. And typically what I find is when I do that, they have no flies on them through the entire time that they're there, because they're usually only on that place for maybe 2 weeks, okay? So I'll do that, and then I'll bring them back. And after bringing them back, it's still a decent little while before I really start to see flies come back. So that's one exception that I'll make to the rule. Other than that, like I said, I try not to spray very often because I don't like doing it. I don't think that it's great for your soil. I don't think it's great for your cattle. So I prefer not to do that, okay? But in that instance, that is one time where I'll actually make an exception and I will spray the entire herd, because I feel like it's a greater good. I feel like what I get out of it, the comfort of the cow that I get out of it, the helping to really wipe out, like it's one of the most effective things that I have ever seen for flies, okay, across the board. So that's one of the big exceptions that I will go ahead and make, is when I will move from one farm to the other. Other than that, like I said, it's just simply when there's 1 or 2 cows that just look really, really bad and they're just absolutely covered up and miserable, then I will go ahead and spray those cows. Another question I had about sprays is, do I use organic sprays or anything like that? And the question is no. I'll use the generic sprays. And the reason is the organic sprays are great because it's an organic option. The problem is most of the organic sprays that I have found only work for a very short amount of time. They don't work as effectively, okay? And if I planned to spray my cows all the time, yes, I would go for an organic option. But because I rarely spray, and because my goal is to get to where I no longer need to spray ever, which we're actually, 6 years into this, we've gotten to where we just hardly ever have to spray anymore. I don't see that it's necessary or even that it's necessarily the best thing for me to go and use the organic option in that case. But like I said, if I planned for that to be the only option, then yes, I think I would definitely lean towards that organic spray rather than the other spray, okay? And you have to watch some of the organic stuff. Everyone's trying to make money, okay? So there's a lot of stuff that's just a big sales hype, and it's not necessarily better, It's like there's this big mixture on line right now about it's an organic weed killer. It's a mixture you can put together yourself. And I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole, but essentially if you really look at the ingredients and understand what it's doing to the soil, what it's doing to the soil is not all that much better, even though, yes, it is organic material. So anyway, we're not going to go down that rabbit hole right now. The point is yes, on occasion, with the right circumstance, I do spray for cows. I do spray for flies. My goal is to, eventually get to where I've got some South Pole cattle that just don't seem to have as much problem with the flies, and hopefully that will be the same down south. We just don't know because there aren't enough people running the South Pole cattle yet down here. The numbers are starting to build up, and I'm really excited to see that. And then of course I want to get more into birds. We have not gotten into as deep into the birds as we wanted, because we tried really hard to get the tree swallows, like a lot of like a couple other YouTubers have done. Greg Judy was one of them. He was the main one that I've seen do that and utilize it, and he did quite well doing it. But the biggest problem is here we don't have the tree swallows. They're just not around. There's a few of them, and we put houses up and we attracted a few, and I think we got more, but we're not seeing the numbers that it would take to really control the flies. Barn swallows is another option. It's something that we do have quite a bit more of here, but the barn swallow houses are harder to do, especially when you're trying to do them from multiple pastures. We have several difficulties in the fact that the land that we're grazing on is actually, we're leasing from chicken farm owners, which there's a big thing about, you have to be real careful about putting birds on their land. So that's something that's difficult to do. So there's just a lot of difficulties in there. Like, we can't put birds on there, and it's just something that we're not allowed to do. So there's a lot of really difficult things as far as how to control the flies for me. It's very difficult, and it's something we're slowly working towards. But I think we're going to get there, but it's just a little bit of a different path. But anyway, guys, so I kind of wanted to touch on that a little bit, kind of talk to that. I did a couple of videos talking about some other options that we're using for flies. We're talking about garlic. We're experimenting with it. It's all experimental. I'm not telling anybody that that's the best thing to do. I'm just saying that that's something we're experimenting with. Go check out those videos, see what we're looking at there. Anyway, guys, yeah, so I think that just about wraps it up as far as the flies go. I hope that answers the questions that I've had in the past. And guys, I really want to thank everyone that has subscribed to my channel recently, and everyone that has been long-term subscribers and has been very faithful to my channel. I truly, truly appreciate it. You are truly the lifeblood of my channel. It helps my channel so much. It helps me. It helps the farm. It just helps the advertisement of everything. And it truly means the world to me. So guys, I really, truly appreciate it. And as always, I ask you, like and please hit that subscribe button. Thank you.